What do you do when the world collapses in front of your eyes? What should you do and what should you not do? In this movie, we follow a couple of characters, see how the world is crumbling to pieces, and try to survive a deadly pandemic in Contagion 2011. In this movie, a deadly virus hits the earth. People die left and right. The government is unsure on how to combat the spread, and the situation is growing more desperate by the minute. If that sounds familiar, yep. In fact, this movie is the realest thing I have ever watched. Even though the similarity to our situation is incredible, the disease in this movie is much more deadly. The death rate stands at 30% and everyone is vulnerable. With that said, the following video is purely based on fiction and based on my opinion only. Okay? It is a video made to entertain, so I hope you love the show today. With that said, let's go. To give you a little bit of a backstory here, Beth, this character here, is currently on a business trip in Hong Kong. On her way back though, she develops serious symptoms and looks like she's about to collapse. The symptoms don't go away. Even when she's back home and reunited with her husband and son, she's clearly in a terrible shape. If you are in such a condition, you should visit a hospital. I mean, the way she looks is terrifying, and coming home from an exotic place, I wouldn't take any chances. Now, even if you don't do that though, which is irresponsible, hugging your family members is insane. Why would you take the risk of infecting them? Why would you voluntarily make those around you sick if you could just maintain your distance, right? Now, unfortunately though, Beth dies. Within just a few days of maybe 3 or 4, the disease has killed her. The symptoms she had were pounding headaches, high fever, dry cough, and seizures. Now, while her husband receives a terrible message, he struggles to understand what just happened, which is understandable, right? But it gets even worse. On his way back home, he receives another call about his son, who just had a seizure as well. When he gets there, it's already too late. His son has died as well. Alright, this is terrible, right? Not only did this man just experience 2 of the most horrific scenarios back to back, he also came in contact with both of them, making it likely that he will develop the disease as well. So this virus here is nothing to play with. It will kill you and anyone else it comes in contact with. But having such a strong contagion around is also a good thing, right? It just makes it so much easier to make life-changing decisions on short notice. Well, COVID-19 is very deadly, obviously. By far, most who get infected will survive. Now, this causes many people to take the disease lightly, which is bad on the other hand. But in this movie, the chance that you will pass away once you are infected is enormously high. In fact, 30% of all infected. Therefore, it is easier to just drop everything and leave. Because if there was a deadly disease in my hometown with a 30% chance of killing me, I would be gone within 24 hours. No questions asked. But where would I go, how would I go, and when? Well, let's have a look. But first, what happens in the movie? So Beth here was patient 0, the first one who got this novel virus, whatever, right? She contracted this virus in Hong Kong and barely survived for 4 days after that. So far, the contagion has spread to the US, mainland China, and Hong Kong. The WHO is already investigating and sending someone over to trace back the virus. Meanwhile, in the US, health departments slowly roll out measurements to prepare for the upcoming catastrophe. The citizens have yet to be notified, and this is the problem. As normal citizens, we are at the bottom of the information hierarchy, right? Once we will know what is going on, everyone else will too, and that is too late. Let's follow up with Mitch here for a second, because I think he is the most relatable character in this movie. Currently, he's quarantined and seems to be immune, right? His daughter was fortunately away when his wife came home and therefore evaded the infection. I mean, this family's life has been altered within less than 24 hours and it will never be the same. But more importantly now is that they stay safe no matter what. That he's quarantined for the time being is good, right? Social distancing, not touching anything outdoors, and wearing masks is the best solution until vaccines get available. The average person touches their face multiple 100 times a day. In between all of that, we touch doorknobs, elevator buttons, and groceries, etc. It's pretty gross if you think about it, especially when you observe people in public toilets. The number of men I see who skip washing their hands after a session is insane. If you don't wash your hands after going to the toilet, when then? I mean, of all instances where you should wash your hands, this is probably the most obvious case, dude. Clearly, the number of pathogens on public surfaces is high. And guess what? They're all on your phones. Unless you disinfect your phone all the time, but who does that, right? You're touching your phone and then your face is something we do 100+ times a day without even thinking about it. But in a world where a virus kills 1 in 3 people, I think we need to adjust our behavior. Now, day 8 just happened, and the public is slowly getting informed. At this stage, you still have probably 2 to 3 days until it's over, right? At that point, many fractions are voicing their diverse opinions. We got genuine scientists trying their best to develop a vaccine, diligent health officials preparing for the worst, skeptics trying to uncover a conspiracy they believe exists, and Homeland Security believing it might have been a bioattack from a competing country. In my opinion, siding with science is almost always a better approach. I mean, science is conducted by experts who dedicate their life to one field. They study for decades, perform experiments, and publicize them to thousands of other experts to get their opinion on their experiment. It's not a perfect system of finding the truth, but definitely superior to anything else that we have currently available. But do we care about this in that situation? I don't think so. This is the best time to vanish into your secret cabin in the woods or your house off-grid, my friends. Any place devoid of people is good. First, you minimize the possibility of an infection, and secondly, you escape the madness that explodes once people feel threatened, because people are animals. Pack your car with things you need: canned food, water, battery packs, light sources, gas tanks, etc. Forget about toilet paper, right? I mean, back in my days, we used tree leaves for that stuff, which works fine unless you pick poisonous ivy, but God forbids. Get out of your city before you can't leave anymore. If you can allow it, leave the country, unless your country is a good pick already. What makes a country a good pick versus what makes a country a bad pick? Well, first of all, affordability, right? If you lose your job because of this pandemic, how long can you survive with what you have? If it's less than 12 months, I would not dare to stay. If you've been lucky enough to grow up in a Western world, you belong to the richest people in the world. Now, if you can book a one-way flight to Bali, get yourself a hill mansion with sea view and a private cook for $700 a month, you can enjoy the end of the world with a nice panoramic view. Hell yeah. Another great spot would be Mongolia. In fact, Mongolia is one of the least densely populated countries on Earth. The chance that you will find a spot devoid of any people there is given. Now, whether your resources are limited or not, the best case is to seek refuge in a stable country as well as a place where there aren't many people. Places that come to mind are Alaska, Greenland, Tibet, the Russian tundra, Patagonia, or, if you're that kind of person, some island in the Pacific. I have found a sweet list of places devoid of people all around the world. You can check it out in the description, I've linked it there. It's kind of a funny list. Now you see, I have never been a particular fan of guns, right? But in this situation, I prefer to have one, more than one if I'm honest, rather than not. Because if you barricade yourself inside a house with enough food and gas to stay alive for a long period of time, you will become a target for those that planned ahead worse. If you don't have the means to defend yourself, everything was for nothing. So, first, gather the means to survive. Second, get somewhere safe. Third, gather the means to protect yourself. And fourth, be patient and keep your moral high. I mean, check this out. Mitch is doing good. He doesn't let anyone in, protects his daughter, but he still doesn't wear a mask. Even though he is immune, he could still pass on the contagion, so that's an easy mistake to avoid. Almost a week after the public statement of the government, Mitch thinks about stocking up rations. This is way too late. Seeing how the streets are in chaos, it tells me that this didn't just happen yesterday. This chaos has been wreaking havoc for at least a couple of days now. The fire department is out of order, the shops are being stripped naked, and sick people are walking around like the almost walking dead. What I love about Mitch in this scene here is how he uses a small tube of disinfectant to sanitize his and his daughter's hands. It's such a small detail that makes a huge difference. Think about it. If you constantly cover your mouth and nose, and let's say even your eyes, and you also clean your hands constantly, the chance that you will get infected is almost zero. But regardless of that though, if you didn't prepare ahead of this stage, it's already more difficult to solve things now. The best solution is to go home and drive into the countryside by avoiding highways and main roads. Any shop outside the city is more likely to still be intact. But Mitch here makes another mistake. When they try to leave this evening, they use the main highway, which has been completely locked down. Not only did he afterwards just drive back home, but he also has lost valuable time that you really don't have at this stage. Usually there are multiple ways on how to leave a city, right? Not just highways and main roads. Picking narrow streets along forests may take longer, but the chances that they aren't closed down yet are high. It's impossible to lock down every single street in a city, especially in just a few days. There are always routes where you can slip through. Now, having a motorbike would be even better. Thinking about a motocross, right? Even if all streets are locked down, you will still find ways to escape like that, even if that means going across fields. Due to the high concentration of human masses, the virus spreads at a rapid speed. And after the virus has created a new normal where human factions are fighting for survival, cities become the first targets. Hospitals and pharmacies get raided for their medicine, police departments for guns and security gear, grocery stores for food and water resources, and tens of thousands of abandoned houses where you can pretty much find everything you could possibly think of. Now, while this sounds nice, it also attracts many people with bad intentions. So you really don't want to be there longer than necessary. It's been 26 days since day 0. The public has been notified about 2 weeks in, and the majority is still here. You do not want to belong to those people. You see, the apocalypse does not wait for no one. By now, the airports are suspended, the land borders are shut down too, and nobody is getting in nor out of the country. Even though 26 days after day 0 seems already too late for an escape, the best solution for any apocalypse is using the sea or the ocean. If you can get your hands on a catamaran, or God forbid a trimaran, then you are Gucci, my friends. Get your stash on boat and sail into the open sea. The only threat there is the weather, and maybe pirates if you circumvent the eastern coast of Africa. But seriously, if you check out the open sea on Google Maps, you will find countless small islands that just wait to be explored. But the best thing apart from avoiding evil people and an oppressing government is that the sea offers you fresh food every single day. If you have enough water supplies, then you will survive the longest there. Plus, you maintain a freer lifestyle than ever before. The first thing that I will do when I reach FU money is getting myself a boat, awesome camping gear, and a volleyball with a face on it. During the same evening, Mitch observes this.
Because of the high volume of 911 calls, please use the following directory.
This was bound to happen, right? His neighbor's house is raided and shots are fired, and I don't think they shot rubber ducks. Upon calling the police, an automated response sounds saying that the emergency service is out of order, which, as you can imagine, is a huge problem. That this wasn't your house that was robbed was pure luck. You could be dead by now, especially when you prepared like Mitch has, because he hasn't at all. The next day, he enters the raided house to figure out what happened. He doesn't find any dead bodies nor anyone alive inside, but what he does find is a double-barrel shotgun. Now, someone once told me that you gotta enjoy the little things in life, and I think they meant this right here. However, apart from a shotgun, this house seemed to be loaded with other stuff. I would have bagged everything I could possibly think of, right? I mean, you've already trespassed and bagged a shotgun. Speaking from an ethical standpoint, it doesn't really matter if you strip naked the whole house at this point. Stealing is stealing. The number of items you snatch doesn't make a difference. For example, there was a tiny fire extinguisher next to the door. That could come handy. There were also ropes and chains hanging from the wall. Bag it. And since US homes usually use gas stoves, there would be gas tanks lying around too. And gas is seriously the most important thing once the apocalypse hits. Electricity is finite, my friends. Once it's out, it doesn't come back. At this stage in the movie though, the healthcare worker employed by the government has infected herself. She is dying. Not just that, but the whole world is on the brink of death by now. While Mitch has failed to escape while he had the chance, those that combat the disease at the forefront are those that got infected first. At the same time, the conspiracy theorist who has been voicing skepticism all along is detained because he was selling quack medicine and made a fortune. Which is funny because his whole skepticism was based on the greed of the pharma industry orchestrating these events to profit off. Go figure. At the same time, the government official who we haven't shown much of, Dr. Ellis, has used his privileged access to information to warn those that are nearest to him. That leads to his hearing before a court towards the end of this movie. And lastly, Dr. Ali, directly employed by Dr. Ellis, finds a vaccine that is slowly rolled out that stops the pandemic in completion sometime after the conclusion of this story. Now, as you can see, this movie was told simultaneously from multiple perspectives. If you haven't watched it, I highly suggest you do. I think it makes a great attempt in showing how different people from different backgrounds make decisions among a deadly catastrophe like this pandemic right here. It's especially interesting to see because we are going through the same thing right now. Even though it was fun to look at potential actions that could have prevented this or that, I think this movie depicted reality very well. Of course, at all times during this movie, the characters were confronted by the unknown, right? Which makes making the right decision infinitely more difficult. With that said, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we talk very, very soon. Peace.